So I was really lucky to have a wonderful support through my diagnosis and treatment, but the challenge came when I had my recovery, and I was really looking for support. And like so many people out there in that position, I had no clue where to start. I didn't know what to do. So I began working with a trainer, and she was really knowledgeable. She just didn't have the knowledge that she needed to work with somebody that had my treatment and surgery and so on. And so I had a really rough go at the beginning, but gradually really just fell in love with exercise and began to feel so amazing, because one of the things as a cancer survivor, as you're going through that cancer experience, you feel like your body's let you down. You feel like you've lost control. You give control over to the healthcare team, everybody else. Exercise was actually starting to give me back control over my body. I need to be able to help other people feel the same way.
Hi, this is Scott Fulton. Good to have you on the program today. Heather Creamer and her husband Hugh MacLeod are co-founders of MedeXN Fitness Institute, an online provider of advanced certifications and continuing education courses. Heather is an 8-year breast cancer survivor who, through her own journey, found a renewed passion for fitness and a healthier lifestyle. She left the corporate world to become a personal fitness trainer, cancer exercise specialist, and certified coach practitioner. She's also a graduate of the Canadian School of Natural Nutrition and a registered holistic nutritionist, and holds an MBA from the Sobey School of Business. Heather also co-authored the book, The Survivor's Guide to Lymphedema. Hugh is the CEO of MedeXN Fitness Institute. He's a decorated sales and marketing professional, impassioned life coach, and dedicated entrepreneur. After being compromised with a lung issue, Hugh traded a drug regime for a fitness and health transformation that completely renewed his lung health. Together, they are building a platform for medical fitness and nutrition in Canada for thousands of clients, practitioners, and medical professionals. It's great to have you with us. Sit back and enjoy.
For the first thing to start off, the hair and makeup team that you sent in to get us all ready was fantastic, Scott. So thank you very much for that. Wonderful people. And Heather and I, on behalf of MedeXN Fitness Institute, would like to say welcome and hello to all of your viewers and listeners out there on the globe that are chiming in, because we're honored to be part of the esteemed group that you interview on an ongoing basis. So,
well, it's great to have you both. You know, part of our mission is to really expand the thinking around longevity and all the baseline of health aspects to consider that most people may have heard about or not, but and I think that's what I found really intriguing about the work you're doing. It's really unique, and that in and of itself it makes it interesting, and it's certainly of high value. So Hugh and Heather, welcome to our Longevity Advantage community. It's we always love expanding it and in all sorts of ways, and I think you're an excellent example of that. Maybe I'll ask the obvious question right up front. The name of your business is MedeXN. That's code for something. So can we tell viewers what the code is?
MedeXN Fitness Institute is made up. The name is Med for medical, X is for exercise, the N is for nutrition. So medical, fitness, exercise, and nutrition. We fit the word fitness into the logo based on what we do and where we are.
And if you look at the logo, you'll see the EX for exercise. The X actually has the little cancer symbol. And that's because I'm a cancer exercise specialist and also a cancer survivor. So we wanted to bring that in as well.
Oh, excellent. Actually, I love creative names. They stay with us a lot longer, and they're just more interesting. So you mentioned medical, fitness, exercise. You'd better explain that to us. It sounds intuitive, but if I stop and think about it, I don't have any idea what that really might be. So maybe you can walk us through that a little bit.
Sure, Scott. So if you think about medical, fitness, exercise, if you think of fitness on a continuum, and you've got medical management and physical therapy on one end, and then you've got fitness on the other, medical, fitness, exercise actually bridges that gap. So it can take that patient from medical management and through a process so that they get into regular fitness. And that's essentially what medical fitness exercise is. It fits in at every stage, so it could be in diagnosis or treatment, and then right in through recovery. And the people that work, so the trainers that work with these clients, need to have specialized knowledge and a skill set so they can work safely and effectively with them. And you can work with, so if you give an example of medical fitness exercise, could be working with people that have diabetes, cancer, heart disease, Alzheimer's, osteoporosis, and then also working with older adults to help them become more functional in their activities of daily living, which keeps them independent longer and keeps them in their own home longer as well. And I'll just point out as well that there are evidence-based guidelines that need to be followed. So medical fitness exercise, there is certain criteria that need to be met, and that's for the best outcomes of the clients.
Right. So it really is. It sounds to me, as you describe it, it's moving someone beyond a medical therapeutic solution, which would traditionally just be a pharmaceutical base. When we say medical therapy, that historically means prescriptions. You're actually taking it much beyond that, which ideally, I guess, is about reducing whatever drug therapy levels are required, either eliminating or reducing doses to be able to maintain a better health and fitness. Does that kind of fit in?
That obviously would be a really beneficial outcome. The challenge for a lot of people is when they've gone through that medical management or therapeutic, going on prescriptions or so on, then it's sort of, okay, what now? How do I get back to where I was or even better? And, a lot of people just don't know what to do. And that's where that medical fitness exercise fits in. It gives them that support that they're missing after that medical management. And it helps them transition to either back to, the level they were before their diagnosis or treatment, or, as I said, hopefully even have a better outcome.
Yeah, because I think as you talk about it, that's the point. That's such a key point, and that's why a lot of people end up staying on medical therapy, prescription therapy, for the rest of their lives, right? They don't really have a solution to take them past that. So
it is, and it's actually they're not cured. They're not cured. They're managing. A lot of times they're just managing whatever illness or disease process they have. So, with exercise, it can help them alleviate so many side effects and symptoms and so on.
And oftentimes you would find a patient, they're caught up in a process where that is their world, and they believe that's all they can do. That is now what their condition is, and that's going to be the rest of their life. And having resources available to them and their public knowledge to understand that they can get that they can venture further for their own best self and have these resources available to them.
Yeah, excellent. I'm thinking of lots of stories and examples of people as you're talking here, and it's fairly clear to me that the earlier we can get people engaged in the fitness and nutrition aspect, the less likely they're going to identify with, I am a whatever disease, because we see so many people end up identifying with themselves as a whatever disease diagnosis that they carry. So it really it sounds like it helps them in that regard too, to keep moving forward, or at least back to a norm that they used to know versus a medical or a pharmaceutical norm.
Absolutely, and give them that positive ID, that positive identification, so that they know this is my best self. I can go do this. I am capable of those next things that others are doing. I just have that disease. I just have cancer. It doesn't define me as I am a cancer person. I just have cancer, and I can actually manage that myself, along with my doctors, the allied health profession, and I can go forward and be my best self and get my best outcome.
Yeah, excellent. So this is not your first business. This is a mature career shift for both of you. So Well, there's different in the whole aging space. That's a really evolving area, right? Is the people taking on new careers, in their 70s and 80s even. So there's really no point that it's no longer an option. But obviously you've learned a lot along the way, and you have your own history. But I know you've been at this business for a while now. So how did you come to start the business?
Well, it was kind of an evolution. And 9 years ago, I was actually a regional account manager with a large multinational corporation, and been with them for 20 years, going along, and received a diagnosis of breast cancer, which kind of rocked my world. That was back in 2011. So I was really lucky to have a wonderful support through my diagnosis and treatment, but the challenge came when I had my recovery, and I was really looking for support. And like so many people out there in that position, I had no clue where to start. I didn't know what to do. So I began working with a trainer, and she was really knowledgeable. She just didn't have the knowledge that she needed to work with somebody that had my treatment and surgery and so on. And so I had a really rough go at the beginning, but gradually really just fell in love with exercise and began to feel so amazing, because one of the things as a cancer survivor, and as you're going through that cancer experience, a lot of people will say, and I think with a lot of different diseases, you feel like your body's let you down. You feel like you've lost control. You give control over to the healthcare team, everybody else. And so the exercise was actually starting to give me back control over my body. It was making me feel really great. It alleviated some of the side effects I was having. And it's just like, this is awesome. I need to, eventually I started thinking, I need to be able to help other people feel the same way. So I made the decision back in 2014 to take an early retirement. And I trained to become first a personal trainer, and then I took the advanced qualifications to become a cancer exercise specialist. And I actually was one of the first in my area of Atlantic Canada. So working with clients, the number of clients grew, and I was like, okay, there's more need for support. And I think not just at this point for cancer survivors or working with cancer patients, but there's a lot of other people out there that need this type of support from individuals that have more training. And so I convinced my husband, pulled him out of retirement because he had retired. He had been a business owner and I had retired. Pulled him out of retirement. I said, okay, we're going to go down to the US. So that's where we went when it went into the States, because that's where medical fitness exercise has really started to take off. We were very fortunate to meet with some amazing course developers, and made contact with them and said, this is what we want to do. And they were jumped on board. And so we want to bring that medical fitness exercise specialty to Canada. And that's what we did. So that's kind of the evolution of the business. And like any new business, it's just been a total blur of activity. But we still make time to exercise because we need to practice what we preach.
Yeah, and I'll just point out, you gave me the video tour before we started. You're in your gym as we're talking, so this isn't a theoretical thing for you. This is very practical. I think you hit on a really important point as you went through that, and if I think of really anyone, but particularly cancer patients. Often it's the spouse or partner who suddenly is supposed to be the primary support giver around trying to do things that they don't have any idea where to start. And so that in and of itself can be quite a challenge, right? And so people find themselves doing a lot of research and trying to ask and getting all sorts of advice. It sounds like one of the things that happens is you're helping connect people up with a partner who actually is educated immediately and carries them forward, which I think is that really critical phase where people are in a lot of stress and they're really asking a lot of questions and perhaps not getting, or most likely not getting the best information. It takes a long time. And that was your experience, right? It's just how long it takes to gather enough knowledge to have something that you can actually work with.
Absolutely. Being the partner in that moment and being in the beginning caregiver support And not having any knowledge and experience of that whole process, I'm an inquisitive person anyway, so I asked a lot of questions, and I asking a lot of questions while we were engaged in the medical side of it. And my background is neurolinguistics. I sit and I watch people and their behaviors, and I'm seeing behaviors coming back to me that were A, confusion, and B, frustration on their part because they could not give us that guidance. They didn't see those resources that we were particularly asking for as being the place they could point us to go to. So that was kind of the maturation of bringing together in those thought processes of building this company and making sure that people don't go through that, because it is the frustration side that shuts it down. So they go away. That adds to what you just said, the stress. The person becomes stressful because where are my answers? I know some of the questions to ask, but where do I ask those questions and where do I go to get answers? And it's just lacks out there. It's not there. There's lots of organizations that have pieces parts, but there's no bridge that allows that person to say, thank you for holding my hand. Let's walk me through this. I come out the other side and say, hey, I have a vision now for myself personally. I know where I'm going. I know what I need to do for, again, my best outcome.
Oh, that's excellent. So you decided to go into business together. What on earth came over you to decide to go into business with your husband?
Well, you know what?
Because there's a few people out there would say that's the last person you want to be in business with. And this isn't a shot at you at all, Hugh. This is in general.
Here we are, husband and wife. We are a team anyway. We both in business, in corporate business. I had a business that was in the telecommunications infrastructure business. I had at one point grown it to 133 people. So I knew the organizational side of it and that business side of it. We decided when we built our gym here that there's a door to that gym. And our personal side is on the other side of it. And when we come into this area, which is the business, we're two business partners. We're two people in business that understand the format, and we understand where we need to go and how we need to conduct ourselves within that business. If there's going to be an argument,
I win.
A debate, there's the answer. I'm under no illusion who the boss is.
It's helpful to have some structure no matter what the business relationship is, isn't it?
Absolutely.
And we do actually have our defined areas of the business. So, you know, we each have our own tasks, which I give them.
It's only through that I met my wife. So I'm quite an advocate for couples who can recognize the benefits of working together. We get to work together on a part-time basis, and I think we both really enjoy it. So we've talked about kind of some cancer patients and things. Maybe just kind of step back and say, in terms of the field of medical fitness exercise, in terms of the need that fills for kind of the over 50 clientele out there.
Okay, so this is where I'm going to talk more on the Canadian side because that's the stats that I know. But I've also done some research on the American side, and I think we're pretty comparable. So what I'm talking about for Canada, I think is going to really be applicable to the US. So when you think about the over 50 population, they're the population that has the most instance of chronic conditions. So you look at heart problems, cancer, diabetes, osteoporosis, all of the things that I had mentioned. And when we drill down into the stats, we see things like, 63% of the Canadian population is either obese or overweight. I know it's similar in the US, and predominantly it's that, again, over 50. 1 in 3 Canadians are diabetic or pre-diabetic. And again, predominantly most of those are over the age of 50. And in Canada, nearly 1 in 2 Canadians will receive a diagnosis of cancer in their lifetime, which is a horrible statistic. But 90% of cancers are diagnosed after the age of 50. And when you look at the number of chronic illnesses, it's interesting. I was looking at some of the stats, and I'm just going to read them so I make sure that I have them correct. between the ages of 50 and 60, 50% of Canadians in that age bracket are living at least with one or more chronic illness. And then you go between 61 and 70, 68% of those individuals are living with one or more chronic illnesses. So they might have two or three. And then over the age of 71, that jumps to 80%. So there is a huge number of over 50 population that's living with a chronic illness. So you would really want to make sure that these people, if they're, first of all, they should be moving, should be exercising, and they're the population that is the least likely to do it. And the majority of the time it's because they don't know what to do and they don't know where to start. So they really need to have somebody that has the skill set, knowledge, and expertise for that particular condition, illness, or combination, because it's never usually just one, it's usually a combination, to be able to work with that client, that individual, and know what to do, know what not to do, not to cause harm, right? And to bring them along that fitness continuum that we talked about, to get them to that point where they can actually do regular fitness exercise.
Right. So and I think as you talk there, you're bang on in terms of the stats. Other than the U.S. is generally a little higher on the unfortunate side of those. I think we're at over 70% now of overweight and obese. 1 in 2 will get a cancer diagnosis. So there's not a lot of difference between the two countries in that regard. And I think as you hit on a really important point there, I want to just come back to is age 50, in my view, is a really definitive point of time in everyone's life. When we look at the age of our parents is something we start to identify with future aging. But at the same time, on a personal level, that's really the time to really kind of step back and say, we need to start making it a priority to try to reduce our risk around any of these number of chronic diseases that are waiting for us if we don't, right? So that's, and it makes it easier to get into any fitness program if we've got even some modest base going in.
The ACSM, the American College of Sports Medicine, says they give recommended guidelines that people between the ages of 18 and 64, and this actually goes for people over the age of 64 as well, should get at least 150 minutes a week of moderate to vigorous exercise plus 2 sessions of some type of resistance training. And so that 150 minutes a week, it's 2.5 hours roughly. So if you did, 30 minutes, 5 days a week, you could do it in 2 sessions. So 2 15-minute sessions a day. Could be walking around the block for 15 minutes, just getting to move. And that works your cardiovascular, your heart and lungs. And then the resistance training is more for support for the muscle and the bone. So especially for people that are at risk for osteoporosis, we really want to make sure that they're doing some kind of resistance training, because that helps to keep their bone density nice and strong. So, and we know that the majority of people are not exercising. I think the stats are saying something like 20% of people over the age of 50 are getting that amount of recommended daily or recommended weekly activity. And as the ages increase, that amount of percentage of population that's actually doing that decreases. And they are the population that need it the most. Because we say sitting is the new smoking. We know that if they're not moving, the chances that they're going to develop some of these chronic illnesses increases. So we really need to make sure that these, that people are moving, but they need to know what to do and how to do it.
Right. And I think that's any movement's better than nothing, but we might as well make the best efficiency out of the time that we do it, right?
And it's cumulative. That's the good point. I mean, you don't have to do it all at once. You can do little bits throughout the day.
Yeah, well, I have a stand-up desk, and so I rarely sit down. I've never been big at sitting down, but it's one of the best changes that I made. So I have a stool that I can occasionally sit down on, so I'm not moving around too much if I'm on camera. But it's a slow adaptation that maybe it's out there. That's really the carrot, right? Is prolonged health is really what we're talking about here, is how do you sustain it?
Exactly. And how do we entice that behavior? Because it's a behavioral shift.
Yeah.
People don't like change. They're adverse to change. So if you can take that culture and have it just shift and understand that there's a betterment to it, they get the best outcomes for them, then that's what this whole process is just a cultural shift.
Mm-hmm.
And that takes you and I and all of those trainers in the world and those facilities in the world to ensure that this becomes a good thing to do, something to do that they will get a benefit of and enjoy it. Mm-hmm. It's just a process of marketing, I guess, and promotion. So,
and it's interesting what people pick up, what type of information they pick out when they listen sometimes to some of these presentations and podcasts. I did one the other day for people that are undergoing cancer treatment or as a cancer survivor, and what to think about if they wanted to start doing exercise, what they should include. And one of the things I always include is that you've got to work on your balance. It's really key. I read a study recently that there was a group of people that were being followed. So they did testing, they got them to do these tests. And one of them was balance tests. So standing on one leg, and how long could you stand on one leg? And then how long could you stand on the other leg? And they followed them over a period of 13 years. And the people that could only stand on one leg for 2 seconds or less were 3 times more likely to have passed away during that 13 years, because we know balance is key to not falling, and slipping and falling is a huge
trips and falls.
Yeah, trips and falls, right, is a huge thing for population as we age. So my mom happened to be watching that presentation, and she's always had a little challenge with her balance, and I always wanted to, sorry, we had technical difficulty there.
That's okay.
My mom happened to be watching that presentation, and I've always wanted to, I've always been encouraging her to work more on her balance. She's got peripheral neuropathy in her feet, so it makes it a little more challenging for her. And so after she listened to that presentation, she said, I said, how did you like it, Mom? She goes, you know what? I'm going to start working on my balance. Like everything I talked about, the whole thing. She's like, I'm going to start working on my balance. I'm going to stand next to the counter. I'm going to go and put one foot up. And I said, Mom, that's awesome. I'm so excited, because I know how important it is for independence.
So it was the expert personality on the screen and not her daughter talking to her, because yeah.
And anything but that content was very important to understand and to now incorporate.
Well, it is none of us want to take advice from our kids at any age, so that's good. So you've talked about this a little bit. Maybe kind of get into a little bit more, if you would, around the difference between a medical fitness exercise specialist versus a conventional trainer, and kind of what those subtle or big differences are.
Sure. And so I'm both. I'm a personal trainer, and I'm also a cancer exercise specialist. So I have clients that I work with that are not cancer clients as well. And so the difference would be really watching out for risk factors. And there's things that you'd have to watch out for with, so I'll use an example as a cancer exercise specialist. So when I'm training, when I'm working with cancer clients and I do my original assessment, one of the things that I look for is, are they at risk for developing lymphedema? And that's the swelling that can occur in affected limbs. So for example, as a breast cancer survivor, if you've had surgery, I'll pick a right breast. So if you've had surgery on your right side, you might have had radiation, lymph nodes removed in the underarm, then you're going to be at risk for developing lymphedema. It could be a smaller risk, it could be a larger risk. The factors are varied. Depending on the individual, if they're overweight, how many nodes removed, it gets pretty technical. So a regular trainer would not understand that. They would not have that depth of information. And I know that there's certain protocols that need to be followed because they're at risk for lymphedema. So for example, we would start really literally with body weight, almost no weight, because we don't know what that affected limb can handle. We don't know what their body can handle. And we would increase the weight incrementally. We wouldn't allow them to wrap any bands around their wrists. And then like there's certain things that you would do. We'd also look at doing specific exercises before that, or I call them exercises, lymph drainage exercises prior to even beginning the workout, because we want to get the lymph moving and flowing. So those are things that a traditional personal trainer wouldn't have that in-depth knowledge. So if they're working with somebody that's a cancer survivor who's at risk for lymphedema, and they're doing what they normally do, put them like with their regular clients, they actually could be putting that client at risk. And I know not so much in Canada, but in the US, there also could be a liability as well for that trainer.
Right.
And that they are completely unaware of.
Yeah, exactly.
They don't know that process because it's not top of mind for them. That's not the skill set that they carry forward as a personal trainer. That skill set is not top of mind in order to perform whatever they're going to do with their client base.
And I mean, that's only one thing. There's so many other things that you'd need to factor in, you know, exactly where their surgical site was, you know, what the range of motion is, muscle imbalances, side effects from treatments. Like it's really, really complex. So you kind of get the idea of what I mean when I say, if you didn't have that in-depth knowledge, it would make it a lot more challenging to work with that client safely and effectively.
Right, and if I'm the client, it says to me, if my time is what I value, then I want to make sure I'm working with someone that's getting the most, or I'm getting the most out of my time, rather than find out later, oh, I shouldn't have been doing this, or right. So it.
Well, even from a trainer's point of view, what they don't want is for that client to not come back.
Exactly.
Because that client never in the moment goes through the experience that they will have, that we'll call a negative experience instead of a positive experience. They always have that when they are away from the trainer, when they are away from the facility, when they are on their own. And those are those drivers that say, that was really difficult on me as the client who has this, I have cancer, then I don't want to go back to that person. I don't want to go back to that facility. I don't want to go do that now. They will then talk themselves out of going because they couldn't get that process mitigated. And the trainer had no idea. They didn't know they were part of that cause. They just did what they knew their skill set was and what they were trained to do. So that is a good solid difference between the two.
Right. And I guess if I'm the trainer and I'm really interested in helping people in a broader way, then this is where this kind of training comes into play, obviously. So what do you see as your biggest challenge in all of this? There's an open-ended question for you.
Well, we see several challenges. One of the biggest that we see here in Canada, and it's going to be a little bit different for you guys in the US, is bridging the medical community with the fitness community. So it's making that bridge, getting them to endorse and advocate. So when I'm talking about the medical community, getting them to endorse and advocate for medical fitness exercise, and then refer their patient to a specialized trainer.
So and having the medical community understand that those specialists are out there, those resources are out there to work hand in glove with the medical community, the allied health profession, so that in-between set, and the fitness community. So that continuum, as we had spoken about earlier, is a continuous handheld all the way across for that client. So the client never has to give up the opportunity to go and, again, become their best self. So the medical community, then if they endorse and advocate, they will then know through orientation and information that they have resources out there and can take their patient and direct them through prescription to get active or through exercise as medicine, whichever terminology they want to use. And they're out there in the industry, but they can then say, this works for you. I see this as a benefit. You should go here because this facility or this person is a specialist in what you have. And so you don't have to give that up, or you don't have to worry about not being able to go that next step. Because as your doctor, I see this benefit for you, and then I endorse that. So you should go here or go there to this facility, because they have the credibility, they have the credentials to be able to perform what you need best for you as that individual. And when that culture starts to happen, look out.
Yeah.
The end users will just be, it is their best world at that point.
And you're fortunate in the US because I think you're further along that pathway, because it is more common in the US. You get fitness facilities that are actually even incorporated now into a lot of your medical facilities or clinics. And so there's really a natural path or progression for that patient to become a client with a specialized fitness trainer.
Yeah. So having the rare benefit of living in both countries for a number of years, I recently can attest to that personally, where I went to an orthopedic surgeon who evaluated me in his clinic, and he said, "I don't think there's anything I can do for you. You need to go for some therapy." So really it was medical exercise therapy that I went through. Very specific, very targeted, very knowledgeable staff. I was shocked how much different it was than going to a trainer or a gym. Night and day difference. I never saw the doctor again. Went through their period and recovered very well. And this was a year-long chronic issue that wasn't going away. And now it's tools that I can use going forward to maintain that health that I learned and that was a problem before. So yeah, it's I didn't experience that in Canada, but I would. So I guess it's a bit of a horse and cart here. Is doctors aren't going to be able to refer until there's people and facilities to refer to, right? So that clearly needs to be coming first.
Absolutely.
I use reluctantly. I'll use myself as an example. I was diagnosed with a lung ailment. Let's put it that way. When I went through that process, like yourself, I was with my doctor. My doctor got to the level of, you need to be with a specialist doctor. I went to that doctor, the specialist, and the specialist said to me, "You're pretty much, this is what your life's going to be. This is where you are. So let's try and do maintenance with that and manage it." And I was at a point where I couldn't walk up a flight of stairs.
No, he couldn't.
I couldn't go for a walk with my wife. I couldn't play with my grandchild. I couldn't do, one of my passions was playing golf. I could not go and play golf because for me to catch my breath took up too much time for the people behind me to try and come and play their game of golf. And I knew that I was a hindrance to them as well as myself. The enjoyment was gone. And through the process, asking questions, Heather, as a nutritionist, we started asking questions of our doctor. And the doctor was absolutely open-minded. It was wonderful to have that acceptance. And she was curious about the nutrition side. And then she wanted to know a little more about the exercise, the physical side, and wanted to know some data. How would this work? How would that happen? I'll endorse it. You go ahead, but keep me informed, which is what her process was, which was great. And I can do pretty much anything. I work out 5 times a week, 450, 500 minutes a week. I do vigor to heavy weight training, cardio. I can go up and down a flight of stairs as many times as you want. I can go right there with you and probably keep on going past you. So I've increased and developed further, but in the moment, had I listened to what was in the moment, that you are probably, this is what your life is going to be, you better get used to it.
Yeah.
It was a classic case of, there's resources there. I got lucky because mine was next to me, but those resources were there, and that's what got me to where I am today, to be able to live my best life.
And the interesting thing is, I always went to every appointment with him and with the specialist. And I had said to her, because I was bugging him, you need to start exercise. You need to start taking control. You need to take control. You need to advocate for yourself. You need to be doing this. And so I went with him to the appointment, and I said, is there any reason he can't exercise? And she said, no. And I said, okay, you're going.
Here we go.
So I got him onto a regimen and gradually increased it till he is where he is today. The fabulous news is the last appointment we went to, because he was going regularly every 6 months, because they wanted to make sure he wasn't regressing. And the last appointment we went to, his results were so good. She just said, "You don't need to come back. We don't need to see you anymore." I mean, that to me was just the cherry on top of the cake.
I gave her a gold star.
But I mean, it's, these are some of the things that can happen if you take control and you add activity, you make lifestyle changes. It can make a huge change in your life.
And more importantly, that's not just me. There are people out there who are exactly like me.
Absolutely.
In the same position. And that's not just Heather, who happened to be my wife who had the credentials. There are opportunities out there for those trainers and facilities to be able to have those specialists, and the wonderment of having those people come through your door, and for that person to say, "Wow, this is my life now. This is a whole new life for me. I get to enjoy and engage with anything I want to do. Play with my grandchild, go up and down my own stairs, as opposed to having to go somewhere else.
Play golf when we can get back out."
Yeah, exactly.
Exactly.
So it's very powerful to be able to be a trainer and to have that skill set that to exercise their knowledge to elevate above. That's one of the TEDx that we like to say, is you exercise your knowledge to elevate above so that you can work with that clientele, that demographic, that the rewards will be endless.
Well, I think you touched on a couple of points there. I'll just come back to highlight. And one is the number of chronic diseases that we know now that we're able to significantly influence and potentially reverse. That in my world, I see it all the time, and so I have to remind myself, I get to see this every day. Most people don't. They view it as a life sentence. And clearly exercise lifestyle is a big part of it. There have been no drugs that cure anything. Drugs are really about managing traditionally, so that's excellent. And I think the other is, if I'm in the exercise fitness world as the trainer or facility operator, if I'm looking to expand and my business, but also expand what my purpose is, why do I get up and go to work every day? This takes it to a whole new level, right? I got it. Everybody gets into fitness because they want to help people get healthier and get fitter. But with the traditional tools, that kind of sets a ceiling. You're really raising up the ceiling now that you can take them to, right?
But even if we let's talk about a business model from a facility or a trainer's position. That business model, when you have a client, a lot of those clients come through your door, they buy a membership and they have a goal. And those goals are to lose weight, to be able to fit into a dress, to go to a wedding. They have some goals that they go with. The demographic that is functional yet compromised, when they show up at your facility, their goal is a lifetime because it is about their life. And so they're long-term. They are willing to work with a trainer. And if that trainer is specialized and can, has the skill set to work with them for what their needs are, the data shows that those people stay a lot longer with a trainer.
It's interesting.
It's incredible.
Dr. Dan Ritchie, who is one of the authors of our functional aging course, functional aging specialist, he's stated, and I think it's very true, if you work with a client, if you take a client that's like 65, 68, 70, and you work with them and functionally make them feel like they're 50 again or 40, and you can do that with exercise, you're going to have that client for a long time because you've given them back something that they never thought they could have again. So it makes sense from a business perspective, but it also for the, as you said, we get into the business to help people. And this is a way we can really make a significant difference in the lives of people.
And you talk about influencers.
Yeah.
That demographic alone will refer to their friends and their relatives because they're actually getting constant, wow, you look great. Wow, you can do that. I didn't know you could do that.
Yeah.
Because they've been able to acquire and build themselves individually, they will go tell their friends and relatives and people they don't even know. You should go and get into this. It's absolutely, what I can do today is absolutely fantastic. I couldn't do that before. That they're the influence market. they will refer. It's incredible from a business model point of view, to have that demographic coming through your doorstep.
Yeah, and it's never too late to start.
Oh.
Like my mom, I won't say.
If you do, you might regret that. She'll just yell at me.
She's older than you are.
But she is older than me, yes.
Yes.
We're like sisters. But she started, just a few years ago, I got her started going to the gym, and she'd never been to a gym before. And I think like a lot of women, we're intimidated. We feel nervous, but got her in there, got her on a program, and she's doing really well. Of course, with COVID now, she's not able to go to the gym. So I have her on a home program, and she's doing some of those sessions online, virtual, which is a lot of people are doing now. So, but it's wonderful, and I see a huge difference for her, just movement-wise, being able to do things like golf, do the things that she loves to do.
But even in her language now is, I miss the gym.
She does.
I miss going there.
Yeah.
I miss my exercise routines and the equipment. So it's actually amazing to hear her say that in that language, and watch it in her behavior, that she is so excited to go and have, because she knows this is the benefits for her lifestyle, because she wants to, be around for a long, long time.
Yes.
Now, I'm the son-in-law. No, I can't say that. Anyway.
Well, she's probably benefiting from the cognitive health, the short-term benefits as well, which we tend to focus on all of the physical and mobility aspects, but there's clearly a cognitive benefit as well. So.
Yeah, there is. Actually, it's really neat. There's a protein that's produced in the body when you exercise. It's called BDNF, brain-derived neurotrophic factor, and it's literally like miracle grow for your brain. So when you exercise, you produce this protein, and it actually helps with cognitive function. So it's really neat. They're learning so many things about the benefits for exercise. I mean, we always knew about it for, healthy body and so on, but for a lot of things like brain health, cognitive function, it can make a real difference. And you can there's even programs out there. We carry one of them, Brain Health Trainer, and it actually combines exercise and things that that stimulate your brain at the same time, because we know that even will create more BDNF, which is even better for the brain.
Yeah, it's excellent. And I remember, we can always substitute play in place of exercise to kind of, because it has some associated with it, but when you find things that you love, it really becomes your playtime and restores your youth. And this is...
You know what? One of the best things you can do for your brain is to learn to dance, because it's learning those complex movements and patterns at the same time that you're, obviously working heart and lungs and doing other things. So yes, the more complex those kinds of things are, and who doesn't love to dance, right? A lot of people.
And I take signals very well. I understand now that we're going to end up in a dance course. I'm listening. I'm listening out loud.
Well, I can tell you that of those who live beyond 100, if there's the most common theme with them, apart from some community and diet aspects, is dance. It's a surprisingly common feature among them, and so a lot of studies have happened now that we understand on the medical science behind it in terms of moving in 3D. But it's great. So I know in the U.S., in certain places, depending what your insurance program is, a lot of this, or at least a portion of it's covered by insurance. What's the status of that, of what you're talking about here in Canada today?
That's one of the other challenges that are facing the fitness industry and the allied health profession as well, is that the coverage for people to become healthier doesn't seem to broaden out into the fitness world to encourage their client, the insurance company's client, to go out and utilize those resources that are available. They just haven't bridged that gap that we see. So that's one of the other endorsements, and we'll be advocating for that as well through orientation, knowledge, and experience, allowing them to understand that a healthier population benefits all. It benefits the person, it benefits the government, it benefits the actual companies that sell insurance. So that's one of those challenges we'll be working towards, hopefully they'll come on board. Now there's some forward-thinking companies, Sun Life as one does look at programs within certain segments and areas that we've heard of. We haven't personally had an opportunity to have a discussion with them, but we would be looking to do that, where they'll mitigate and work with clients who have a need on the fitness side or a health side.
And I think it depends too. If you have private insurance through a company, for example, when I worked with the multinational company that I was with, with my insurance coverage and even with my retirement benefits, I'm able to put some towards maybe a gym membership or something. So there is some flexibility, but to have, insurance coverage for somebody that wanted to go and do, if they're diabetic, for example, and they wanted to go and exercise, to help potentially either lessen the amount of insulin or medication they need to take, or potentially even have them come off it entirely, which would be awesome. Insurance isn't there yet, but I've heard this quote and I just wanted to read it. It said, if exercise was a pill, it would be prescribed to every patient and insurance would cover it. So that's where we need to get to. We just need to make it part of that whole continuum. And that's where we need to get to. Yeah.
So if we kind of look 5-10 years down the road, what do you think the picture will look like for medical exercise fitness?
Well, we see it's been trending, especially in the US. It's been growing. There's organizations like MedFit Network who are bringing together all of these fitness professionals and allied health professionals. The large organizations, the fitness organizations, when they do their top 10 trends of the year, what's coming down the pipeline, they always mention medical fitness exercise, and it's been climbing. And when you look at the demographics, and I think that's really that shift in demographic, that's really going to push. That's going to be the driver. Because again, in Canada, where 1 in 6 Canadians are over 65 by the year 2025. So 5 years, it's 1 in 5. And then by the year 2030, which is 10 years away, it's 1 in 4. So, and we know with all those risks associated for chronic illnesses, that's just going to drive more increased need. And I think as that need comes, as the push comes, as the awareness grows with the public, that it's available, I think it's just going to continue to build. And we hope in 10 years, it'll just be mainstream. For example, in Australia, in their cancer therapy, or as part of their cancer protocol, they actually include exercise as part of an adjunct therapy for their cancer patients. So we really hope, in Canada and in the US, that it will get to that. It'll just be part of the treatment plan. You have diabetes, here's your prescription for insulin. We're going to send you through to get nutritional counseling, and here's your diabetes exercise specialist that you're going to work with to help you, maybe lose the weight or do whatever it is that you need to do. And
we would see that the facilities and trainers, they have an opportunity today to get ahead of the curve, but as that curve starts to grow, everybody is going to be getting on board that, because it is a business model, and the big corporations will start to see that. So getting ahead of the curve right now and becoming specialists that train and have the skill set ready to go just benefits them completely.
And Scott, the really great thing about it is it doesn't require a capital investment in most cases, because you don't need a lot of extra equipment. A lot of times you don't need anything new at all.
Exactly.
Really, the investment is in the training.
Is in their asset. Their asset is their trainer.
Best asset, which is their trainers.
Absolutely.
Exactly. Yeah.
And as you're talking about it as well, and you talk about, or we think about Australia and Canada that you mentioned, which traditionally are places where new ideas get marketed and tested first, right? Those are historic in business, where we trial things. It's odd that it's a little bit reversed, and I wonder if it's because, if I use the U.S. example, where it has more of an exercise or sport history to its culture, that it's been more proactive and it's ahead of the curve. So anyway, that's an interesting discussion on itself, but I think the point I would raise up, certainly for a Canadian market, is you're not having to do any new development here. This has already been done. So you just find out who's already doing it and you roll it out. So whether you're on the business side of it or on the government side of it, this would be a pretty easy one to roll out. You shouldn't have to work too hard to convince people.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So as we record this today, we're in the world of lockdown, or at least we're showing signs of coming out. But how has that impacted your business?
We already are an online provider, so all of our courses, everything is online. So that hasn't been impacted. Actually, we've been busier than ever, really, because a lot of trainers now have the time to take the courses. So it's kind of a mixed blessing.
The forward-thinking ones have actually grabbed onto that and started quickly, so it was great.
But we did have a number of live workshops that we were planning across the country, and those obviously had to be pulled back. So we're learning ourselves using these new virtual platforms to reach out and do the education, do the workshops and live. So we're kind of modifying what we're doing. And I know a lot of facilities and gyms are going to be the same. You know, they've pivoted and provided a lot of online programs, and a lot of them are actually doing quite well. I mean, the ones that already had an online component obviously were out there a little quicker. But you know, any facility that's sort of pivoted and is providing that online component, I think they're going to do okay. The challenge will become as we open back up, you know, are those clients going back to the gym, or are they just going to stay with the virtual? So I guess time will tell.
Yeah, we've been steadily moving towards this, and it comes down to personal fit, I think, and a practical aspect depending on where you live, how easy it is to get there. The benefit of the social atmosphere. We look at some clubs which are clearly, like I think of the one in the U.S. is Fitness Over 50, so it's clearly targeted for that demographic, and there's a huge social component to going, and they happen to play at whatever exercise when they're there each day. But
Absolutely.
So the demonstration through this COVID process now has shown through the data that people can do things virtually and get the benefits from those. And so those aspects that we were looking at, First Nations, those types of areas that are remote, that don't have access to specialists and facilities that are up to the greater speed that we're talking about here, just because of location, they can now also engage in these processes and get the benefits from them.
And the other thing is too, I mean, we're in the, over 50, and one of us is in the over 60. So, and we're at a higher risk with, as things start opening up, and, we're going to be, okay, do we want to go there? Do we want to go here? Especially with him with his underlying lung condition. So, and we're probably the same as a lot of people. We're wondering, should we risk going? So having the ability to actually continue working at home, working out at home and exercising at home is really a value. And we actually had a conversation. We did a presentation with our course author for the brain health trainer, Ryan Galat, and he works out of the Pacific Brain Health Center in California. And he does everything virtually now. And one of the thoughts or concerns, I think, for people working, for trainers working
Absolutely.
with people, that are over the age of 50 or 60 or older, is technology challenge. And he said, hey, I literally just got off the phone with my client who was 90, and we did the Zoom meeting. We did what we normally would do. I did the training. He was there. I was, in my office. And he said, I haven't had any problems at all. And that's been one of, actually, I think, the blessings. Technology has progressed so much that it's very easy once they're set up on these platforms. They literally click a link and they're in. So there really isn't any excuse for not being active.
I actually subscribe to the saying, I want to die young as late as possible.
Exactly.
That's the way I'm going.
Independent as long as possible.
Well, yeah. So one of the experts in my circle is Dan Zeman, who's author of "You're Too Old to Die Young." So that's so he certainly made that popular. Well, that's been excellent. This is a really opened the door into kind of thinking about exercise and health in association with either disease prevention, but primarily, I guess, on the managing your way back out of disease and back to kind of normal function, and perhaps even ahead of where we were before. Opportunities, obviously, on the business side. There's opportunities for insurance companies here to recognize a newer model that's probably going to be appealing to them, and obviously on the government side to support it as well. So I can see all sorts of people will be interested in reaching you. So what's the best way to get a hold of you and learn more about what your business is about?
Okay, so actually our website is www.MedeXN, so that's MEDEXN.com. And they can also email us, so at Hugh at HUGH@MedeXN.com.
Yeah. And Heather.
Or Heather at MedeXN.com. Yeah. Exactly. And any questions, curiosity, interested in courses, or just interested in learning some more about medical fitness exercise, we're here to help.
And the website has lots of details, free details that someone can get into as far as data, information, curriculums. That's all there that they can have a look at to make those determinations of what best suits the way they want to go forward.
And actually we have some free resource libraries. So we've built one for diabetes. So if somebody is either pre-diabetic or diabetic, they can go on our website. We have a resource library with some downloads, exercises, videos from our course author, and we're currently building one for cancer. We're going to do one for brain health. So we're continuing to build free resource libraries. It could be for trainers, but they're also for the general public that has interest as well. And a number of our courses don't require prerequisites. So for people that are interested in, how to stay independent as long as they can, we have a functional aging program. The diabetic exercise specialist program is actually composed of 3 levels. And the first level, which is the foundation, is also suitable for somebody that is pre-diabetic or diabetic, wants to exercise, wants to make some changes in their life, but doesn't know where to start. And that would be a really good program for them to do. So it's not necessarily just for trainers, it's also for the general public that has the interest as well.
Oh, that's excellent. And I know I've searched around the site, and there's a surprising amount of information there for everyone. So Hugh and Heather, great to speak with you again. And we've covered a lot of ground here, potentially for a lot of different people at different times. But growing the awareness around this, I think, is really important. And I think your business is a brilliant business. You're clearly here to help people in all sorts of capacities, and we certainly thank you for having the courage to venture off and break new ground in Canada on this. But I'm sure that this is, when you say in 5 or 10 years, I think it's going to be a lot bigger than even what you're thinking about today. So congratulations. Thank you for being a part of our community again, and for taking time out of your business to share with us.
And Heather and I want to take the opportunity to thank you very much for this platform, for us to get a little more exposure across the border, as well as your Canadian audience. We see and understand the value of this, so we much appreciate it. Thank you.
Yes, thank you, Scott.
Great. Thank you both. Stay well.
All right, you as well.
Have a great day.
Bye.
Thank you.
Bye.